All right, so let's see what kind of comps they're running. And it looks like PIME did adjust their lineup as well. The last time they were playing Windwalker, Mage, and Hunter. They were not playing this Moonkin, but it looks like they actually adjusted their setup and they're now running that Moonkin as well. But they actually replaced their Windwalker, it looks like. So they're running a triple range setup now.
Triple range setup. I wonder what that's got to be for the storming, right? I mean, that makes the most sense to me. DK definitely does have issue with that storming, as you can see the tank and the DK just getting knocked around like pinballs. But yeah, every single time we've seen the DK versus Hunter matchup, I think the DK has just won out purely because of the extra single target damage it can pump out on these Tyrannical bosses.
Yeah, Igloo going down, unfortunately, here for PIME on the very first pull. Looks like they just immediately like he just immediately released and he's now back. Thankfully, it was at the very end of the pool, so they didn't have to commit a battle rest. They didn't have to, lose anything else here. So good job to recover. Still 5 seconds on the board, of course, but not too much lost. As Obey Alliance still finishing off their pool, looks like they did it a little bit slower compared to PIME. They're already moving on, even though they did have this one death.
Yep, for sure. I'm interested to see once we get an update on this MDI gear tool, whether or not the priest is going to be running that dominant mind talent. It looks like it has updated for Team Obey Alliance, and he is not running that talent. Hollow is not running the dominate mind. Haven't updated for PIME yet, so I'm not sure if they're going to be running that as well, but it just seems like it's a strong strategy, right? If you're able to mind control that Soul Cleaver, it'll put a 20% damage taken debuff on top of the boss, which will increase with the 300% damage that the boss is already taking, so we'll be actually taking 360% increased damage. And which is why when we saw Team Question Mark pull that off yesterday, the boss actually just died inside the damage app versus it getting down to like a low percentage. So if either of these teams were able to pull that off, that'd be really impressive to see them make that on the fly decision here.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe Obey Alliance decided to stick to their strategy, which I think was also a really smart strat, right? The thing with the shadow melting off the pride at low HP. I think that's also a good strat, but I do think that one just costs you more time compared to just simply mind controlling that Soul Cleaver, which just seems to be much stronger and gives you more damage for this phase. So yeah, interesting to see what is faster, as both of them did now proc that Pride. We see both of them fighting it, and we also see the Soul Cleaver being CC'd for PIME very, very close to them. And this probably means that they will be doing this mind control strat, as they're just having it set there in that hard to see by the Hunter, making sure they're gonna get it closer to the boss later as soon as they need it.
Yep, and of course they're not going for the full Obey Alliance strategy. They're just going to be pulling that manifestation in with the boss and cleaving it down here, which is totally fine if you're going for the full one phase, right? That prideful buff lasts 60 seconds, and it's not going to take you too long to get through this boss on 18 Tyrannical. Throman probably has about 800,000 HP, so get through 600k with that with no cooldowns, and the prideful buff should be totally fine. But I'm interested to see here that freezing trap is going to come off in about 10 seconds. Actually, it's just going to retrap it. They're going to have to break it right before the dominate mind here.
Yeah, we see the Bloodlust being popped here now by 4 PIME as they're getting closer and closer to finishing off Droman to get that extra damage increase on Ingra. We still see the CC on that Soul Cleaver, so definitely going to use that once Droman is down. Well, on the other side, Obey Alliance just now engaged the boss, and they did use that Shadow Meld strategy that I've been talking about earlier. They're now pulling the Pride mob back in, and they're now going to be finishing it off to get the Pride buff later on. And now you're just going to look at the damage that Clix is doing on that Moonkin. Just insane burst coming out of the Moonkin with the Celestial Alignment and the Convoke as well. The boss is just melting. It is on 4%, so they didn't get to completely kill the boss, but 2%, 1%, there we go. Just so fast with all of those cooldowns and that Soul Cleaver as well.
Yep, and you can see that he is using the Dominate Mind talent because he was doing damage himself and he had the mind control off there. So, yep, PIME has adopted that strategy here and it's working out in droves for them. And they didn't quite kill the boss inside the damage amp, but here it comes for Obey Alliance. Now they are now killing the boss. Notably, they don't have that Soul Cleaver there. How low can they get it? They get it down to about the same amount, 6% on the board. And that's just going to be the difference between the DK and the Hunter there. The DK pumping out a lot more damage on this boss than the Hunter was able to. Obey Alliance still behind, but definitely able to close the gap a little bit with that play there.
Yeah, definitely. But it just goes to show that the strategy that Obey Alliance are doing with their Pride mobs just takes a little while longer to set up, right? I think they did have the same amount of damage on the boss. It was actually very similar because, as you mentioned, you just have the DK, which does a little bit more damage compared to the Hunter for this burst phase there. But because it took them a little bit longer to set it up with, having to shut them out of the aggro and so on, they were still slightly behind compared to Piami, but it's incredibly close as Piami is just now in that second room in that maze, while Obey Alliance is still dealing with that first trash pack before they enter the maze.
Right, it's important to mention as well that it is on rails now. We have the exact same route the entire dungeon, so we're going to be able to see a very easy comparison between the two teams right now. Obey Alliance is just going to be one trash pack behind unless they're able to come up with a bunch of extra damage here over Piami. So yeah, Piami, very solid lead right now.
Yeah, definitely. These trash groups, they can be decently dangerous. I think the main issue is Inspired. Inspired just means there's an aura around the mob, basically preventing you to see any of them except the mob that is Inspired himself. So really hard to deal with trash packs if you cannot interrupt any of them or even CC/stun them at all. So that can cause some issues here, but it looks like they're doing a really good job as they just... I'm not sure if they tried to shut them out of this Pride or if this really is their strategy to just use the Pride, just drag it along and just AoE it down. I'm not sure if this is gonna work, but they're using all of their offensive cooldowns here. But Dr. J has to ice block while the PI is up on him as well, so this can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, it's definitely a more dangerous way to do the pull, but it makes total sense actually. Like if you can just cleave it down with a pack like they're doing right now and live through it, yeah, it's totally fine. Yeah, you use your ice block, yeah, you use your personals, but where else are you going to use them in this section of the dungeon? This trash isn't necessarily that dangerous, right? As long as you're able to interrupt or stop the bites going off, you should be totally fine. And I think this is something that I'm not too surprised to see them pull off, because there is a little bit of grace period in between where the Prideful spawns and when you're actually in combat with it, where you can just go through the mist and then drag it along. And now they have that 30% damage buff for the rest of the dungeon at pretty much no loss.
Yeah, so I was actually wrong. The PI didn't go on Dr. J. It actually went on the Hunter with that true shot being used by Mini. So didn't waste the PI after all with that ice block. So the combustion just being saved for this pack here specifically. Dr. J didn't even use it at all on the previous pack. Just getting that PI on the Hunter, just destroying the pack and the Pride as well.
They're doing it again. They're doing the exact same thing. The trash died.
Yeah,
they
looks like it.
The portal. Yeah, this is how you know it was on purpose, because they're doing it multiple times in the dungeon, right? They're taking advantage of this. Otherwise, you would just be doing pure single target damage on this Gorge Gullet here, and why not cleave two mobs down? I mean, to be fair, they don't have the greatest 2-target damage, but when you have a Druid Convoke plus CA available, why not? Just cleave them down.
Yeah, I mean, Celestial Lament and Convoke is definitely very, very good on single target, also on 2 targets. Of course, it can be a little bit RNG onto which target your damage is really going, but it looks like it did choose the correct targets as the Pride is going down, so they now have to deal with this frog, only the mini-boss. One thing to note about this maze here specifically for the MDI is that all of these teams actually get the same maze. So they have the same mobs and the same maze for all of them, meaning all of them are going to get the same percentage and the same maze just for integrity of the tournament. There's not going to be any RNG involving that like there is in live servers.
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, right. That's exactly how it works. So you can actually see how big the gap is here as well, right? Obey Alliance opting not to pull this Prideful into the Gorge Cult like we saw from Piami. So instead of cleaving 2 targets down, they're going to go for 2 pure single target situations. Like that's just actually generally worse. You know, doing 2 single target mobs instead of cleaving them down. Who'd have thought that was worse? And yeah, Piami is just going to open up a bigger lead now because of that. They're already on to Mistcaller, where Obey Alliance still has the Gorge Gullet and another trash pack to get through before they can even start this boss.
Yeah, this is actually, this is really something that can speed up this maze. Now, this maze specifically, I was talking about this earlier where I was saying that in the MDI, it's actually going to be really hard for them to speed up the maze because the doors do not open until you finished off the trash, and you can also not go through the door if you're in combat. So usually it goes pretty slow, right? Because you have to go pack by pack by pack. But by doing things like what PIME is doing, where they just drag the Pride along, it's really speeding this up. And one thing to note as well is that they have to do this very good with the Pride timing as well, because the Pride mob, as soon as it spawns, a couple of seconds later, you get incumbent with it, so you cannot open the door. So we saw them making sure they spawned the Pride by killing all of the mobs at the exact same time, and then spawning the Pride, and then they open the door before they get incumbent with the Pride mobs. It actually requires really good timing, otherwise you won't be able to drag the Pride mob along with you because you're incumbent and the door doesn't open. All right, so it looks like PIME is in the second intermission phase. Actually, they are out of the intermission phase already. They're dealing with Mistcaller, which, to be honest, this boss really not causing any sort of bigger issues for any of those teams before, because this boss, the intermission phase can be hard because there's a lot of AoE damage happening, and you also see the Mistcaller still casting all of the abilities. You have the freeze sack still happening, you have the snowballs still happening at the same time, but these teams usually are doing a good job, so it shouldn't be any problems for them. They also just have to find the odd one out. It's the same as the maze, basically, and that also shouldn't be a problem. I do really want to see one of the teams, though, going for the wrong one, because I just want to be entertained, so...
Yeah, that would be pretty entertaining, but you know what would also be entertaining is if they actually opt to go for that one strategy we were talking about yesterday. The CA is popped now for clicks, and he convoked at... He convoked to 20% HP, so never mind. I thought they were going to go for it, but maybe not. I would love... If you're going to use it there anyways, why not try to go for the burst? I don't understand. Whatever. You know what? I'm not mad.
I do agree that they should at least try to go for the burst, but they don't have a Windwalker, right? I almost feel like a Windwalker is required to even like attempt to go for a strategy, because without that touch of death, it's going to be so incredibly hard. I mean, unless you proc a full moon, right? I mean, a full moon basically is like a really good touch of death as well. So maybe they just hope for that one.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to have the Windwalker Monk there in order to even go for that shot. We always forget. I mean, I always forget about that. Maybe like the Convoke would be enough if you got like a full moon crit and then like a ridiculous amount of RNG, right? And then maybe you have the Combust on top of that. But also similar to what we were talking about yesterday, having to also commit the Combust there to that doesn't sound like a good prospect for this next pull that you're pulling off, which you absolutely need to have Combust for. Otherwise, you're going to run into some major issues of it just not dying in time.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see how both of those teams are gearing up to do this pull. Now, Obey Alliance are actually in the very same spot at this point. But if you look at the trash, they're actually 13% trash behind. So they have to pull a lot more than what PIME has to pull. But they are at the same point. So if they somehow manage to do the same pulls just bigger without wasting any extra time, then Obey Alliance actually still has a chance of winning this. We were just talking about PIME this whole time because they were so much faster earlier on in the dungeon, but Obey Alliance definitely still has a chance to catch up if they're just doing some insane pulls, which is definitely possible considering they do have the Unholy Decay, which allows you to do huge pulls on top of bosses as well. And that is something we have seen before in Mists specifically, where a lot of those teams just have pulled a lot of trash on top of the last boss, Tredova, and just nuking it down. So let's see what they have in store for us, as it looks like they are playing this Pride mob on the Obey Alliance side, and PIME also playing their Pride mob as well.
Well, the thing to look out here is the trash percentage as well, right? PIME, they're at 88% trash. They will be done with their trash with the final trash packs available before the boss, and I believe just one extra mob once the boss is about to die, because they don't want to spawn that 5th Prideful when they're about to go into the boss or during the boss. Whereas Obey Alliance, they're going to have to come up with an entire extra trash pack, which I don't think they have available to them right in front of them. So yeah, they only have the 2 trash packs in front of the boss, but they'll have to kill a 3rd one afterwards. So PIME, they're gearing up for their final pull of the dungeon here. All they need is these 2 trash packs into the boss with the Prideful, with the Bloodlust, with all of their cooldowns, and then they'll be able to finish off the trash during the boss later on.
Yeah, this is really PIME at this point, as they're just now engaging Tredova. They're also basically they were just running through the trash, so they're pulling it on top. It's slowly gonna come into the boss at this point, as they also pop their Bloodlust as well. Obey Alliance doing the same thing. They're also running to Turdova as well, but as Syra mentioned, they're 10% trash behind, so they have to somehow pull more trash into the boss if they want to get up to that 100% that PI me is going to be at after this one. And we see how incredibly fast Turdova is dropping as well. This boss can be dangerous, but because he got nerfed so many times over the course of beta, basically, it should not be an issue for them, even though it is tyrannical, as long as they interrupt the parasites properly and they dodge the green swirlies on the ground, as you can see them spawn right there. It shouldn't be an issue. Mini dropping incredibly low, actually, as he was going outside, and it looks like Obey Alliance actually caught up on boss DPS here.
Man, I know I'm going to sound like a boomer when I say this with the whole back in my day bit, but man, how exciting would it be to see these teams fight an unnerved version of Turdova? Back in early beta, these green swirls on the ground that you see right now from Obey Alliance, those didn't exist. You just had to remember where you moved the last time the boss did the ability, and you had to hope that your teammates weren't being stupid and blinking around whenever that ability came out. Otherwise, you'd just get hit by theirs. How crazy would this boss be on Tyrannical if that was the case? Fortunately for us, that's not going to happen. They do have this very easy mode version where you can just dodge the green swirls, but that'd be definitely pretty exciting.
I would love that so much to have that version back, but it looks like Obey Alliance, they are definitely having more boss damage as it is lower, but look at the percentage, right? It's really just one extra mob that Piami has to finish off. The reason why they're doing this is because they actually just want to skip the very last Pride mob, but yeah, still need those 2% on their side.
Hollow did go down for Obey Alliance there, but they had the battle res to back it up. Could have been pretty dangerous if it was going off during the consumption, but it was at a pretty safe time for them. That being said, it's just going to be too little too late for them, unless they can come up with a way to kill an entire trash pack in the next 10 seconds or so, which they can't. This is going to be the end of the road for Obey Alliance in their first MDI Cup of the year. All Piami has to do is finish off Turdova, pull one singular trash mob, which you can see its health plate there, the Spine Maw Gorger. Once that dies, but it's going to be game over.
Look how fast they're killing it. They're killing it so fast.
Actually,
are they pulling trash on top of it? Turdova is going down at this point. I mean, I don't think they can do 10% trash that fast. It's very unlikely. There we go. It looks like Piami is spawning the Pride as well, so they actually got the last percent trash that they need. So at this point, they just have to finish off the boss, and it really should go there. There we go. 10% still, though. 10%. I don't think Obey Alliance can finish all of that trash. We don't see it. Just how close? No, they're not even close, actually. Okay, no, definitely is going to go to Piami, but it was a lot closer than I actually thought initially. So yeah, good job, Piami. As they're finishing up the boss, there we go, and they're going to win the series against Obey Alliance. Wow.
Thanks,
Mini getting the snipe onto him. Congratulations to PI Me for taking the victory.